Picture a creature born with external gills that look like rosy feathers floating around its head. A creature with a permanent smile expressing innocent happiness. A creature capable of regenerating body parts, including eyes, heart, and even portions of its brain. And that somehow manages to stay young forever without ever aging. This isn't the description of some mythological being or a creature straight out of wild fantasy, but rather a perfectly accurate description of a very real creature that's been walking this planet for millions of years. Welcome to the axolotl, hands down one of the most extraordinary, fascinating, and downright mind-blowing animals on Earth. Scientists, biologists, and nature enthusiasts have been captivated by this creature ever since Western civilization discovered it. The name axolotl comes from Nahuatl, the ancient language of the Aztec peoples, and literally translates to water god. In Aztec, axo means water and lotl means monster or creature. So the full name roughly translates to water monster or aquatic creature. The indigenous peoples of Mexico saw the axolotl as sacred and special, an animal worthy of respect and reverence because of its extraordinary properties and mysterious nature. In Aztec mythology, the axolotl was linked to Xolotl, the god of death, fire, and duality, a connection that honestly makes perfect sense given how weird and almost supernatural this animal is. The axolotl is an aquatic salamander belonging to the family Ambystomatidae and the genus Ambystoma. Its scientific name is Ambystoma mexicanum, a designation that clearly points to where it comes from. This amphibian is endemic to Mexico, meaning in the wild you'd only find it naturally occurring in Mexican territory, specifically in the lakes and water bodies of the Mexico City basin. Here's the thing though, today the axolotl is basically extinct in its natural wild habitat, even though it's thriving in captivity in labs, aquariums, and homes around the globe. It's honestly one of the most fascinating and heartbreaking conservation stories you'll ever come across in the modern world. The axolotl's physical appearance is straight up one of a kind in the animal kingdom. It has a cylindrical, elongated body that's typically pale pink or white, though wild varieties come in darker and brownish colors too. The real standout feature is its 3 pairs of external gills sprouting from the sides of its head, delicate structures that look like feathery plumes or bright pink fans. These gills are heavily vascularized, meaning they're packed with tiny blood vessels that pull oxygen right from the water. On top of those external gills, the axolotl also has internal lungs, letting it breathe air directly, though it definitely prefers to get its oxygen mainly through its aquatic gills. The axolotl's head is broad and flattened with super tiny eyes sitting on the surface. But here's what makes its face instantly recognizable: that perpetual smile. This permanent grin is caused by the natural shape of its mouth and jaw position, creating the illusion of a friendly, happy expression. This facial feature has made the axolotl insanely popular as a pet and has spawned millions of images, memes, and representations in contemporary pop culture. Its body features 4 short, stocky limbs that it uses to slowly shuffle along the bottom of water bodies, though it's definitely not the fastest or most agile mover you'll ever see. But here's the thing that's really extraordinary about the axolotl. It's not just its looks, it's its jaw-dropping ability to regenerate body parts with almost zero limits. The axolotl has got hands down the most advanced cellular regeneration abilities in the entire animal kingdom. It can regenerate with perfect anatomical precision pretty much any part of its body, including complete limbs with all their bones, muscles, nerves, and blood vessels intact. But that's just the beginning of what this creature can pull off. The axolotl can regenerate its tail, its skin, parts of its heart, its liver, its kidneys, and get this, even parts of its brain. The fact that it can regenerate brain tissue is particularly mind-blowing because regrowing neural tissue is something very few animals on the planet can actually do. Scientists have studied the axolotl's regeneration mechanics super thoroughly because the implications for human medicine are massive. Here's how the regeneration process works. When an axolotl loses a limb, say a leg, its body immediately gets to work forming a ball of cells called a blastema. This blastema is basically a collection of undifferentiated cells that have the potential to become any type of cell. These cells contain all the genetic information needed to rebuild the lost limb exactly as it was. Through a highly coordinated process of cell division, differentiation, and controlled growth, the axolotl rebuilds the missing limb in just a few weeks, with every anatomical detail perfectly in place. The craziest part? If the axolotl loses that regenerated limb again, it can grow it back without breaking a sweat. Some axolotls in labs have regenerated the same limb between 10 and 20 times during their lives. Scientists have even done wild experiments where they moved the blastema from one limb to another spot on the axolotl's body, and boom, the blastema just goes ahead and grows a complete limb in that new location. In some extreme cases, researchers have managed to create axolotls with extra limbs in weird places on their bodies. Though yeah, these experiments raise some serious ethical questions. Another thing that's totally wild about the axolotl is that it never actually ages in the traditional sense. This is because of a biological phenomenon called neoteny, which literally means holding on to juvenile characteristics. The axolotl is an obligate neotenic animal, meaning it stays in its larval form its entire adult life. While other salamanders eventually grow bigger lungs, lose their external gills, and completely transform into terrestrial adults that can live on land, the axolotl never goes through this change. It keeps its external gills, its aquatic body, and its youthful appearance throughout its whole life. That means a 10-year-old axolotl looks practically identical to a 1-year-old axolotl, a trait that's absolutely unique among vertebrates. In captivity, axolotls typically live around 10 to 15 years, though some have made it to 20 under optimal conditions. During all these years, the axolotl doesn't show the normal signs of aging like vision loss, progressive muscle weakness, or changes in color. It stays active, mobile, and capable of reproducing basically the whole time. This lack of visible aging has sparked tons of speculation and scientific research into how the axolotl manages to avoid getting old. Researchers think the secret lies in telomeres, the protective caps on the ends of chromosomes that normally get shorter with each cell division, which causes aging. The axolotl apparently has a more efficient way of maintaining its telomeres, allowing its cells to divide without the accumulated damage that normally leads to getting old. The axolotl is a totally aquatic animal that never voluntarily leaves the water. It lives exclusively in lakes and freshwater bodies, spending its entire life slowly cruising along the bottom. In its natural habitat, the axolotl specifically lived in the lakes of the Mexico City basin, especially Lake Xochimilco, which is designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. These lakes had cool to moderate water temperatures, tons of aquatic plants, and soft muddy bottoms where the axolotl could chill comfortably. The axolotl is an active predator that feeds on tiny organisms like small crustaceans, aquatic insects, fish larvae, and other little aquatic creatures. It relies on its sense of smell way more than its eyesight to find food. Axolotls have been kept in captivity for over 150 years. The first axolotls were brought to Europe in the 19th century for scientific research and biological study. They became super popular in scientific labs pretty quickly because their unique biology made them perfect for studying regeneration, metamorphosis, and embryonic development. Scientists could breed axolotls in captivity with relative ease, and lab colonies multiplied fast. It was through these early scientific studies that the Western world really discovered just how extraordinary the axolotl's abilities are. One of the most important discoveries made through studying captive axolotls was how to trigger metamorphosis in these neotenic creatures. Scientists figured out that by injecting thyroid hormone into axolotls, they could force them to undergo metamorphosis, losing their external gills, developing bigger lungs, and transforming into terrestrial salamanders that looked like their close relatives. This showed that the genetic mechanism for metamorphosis is totally present in the axolotl. It's just normally suppressed. Being able to induce metamorphosis has been super valuable for understanding how hormones work and how biological transformations happen in animals. Captive axolotls typically come in way more color varieties than their wild counterparts. Wild axolotls are usually dark-colored, almost black or brown, with golden or yellow spots. But through selective breeding in captivity, breeders have developed tons of different color variations. The most popular type is the white axolotl with red eyes, a combo that comes from recessive gene inheritance. There are also leucistic axolotls, which are white but with dark eyes, giving them a completely different look. Breeders have also developed dark axolotls with increased melanin, golden-colored axolotls, and other variations. This whole range of colors only exists in captive bred animals, which shows just how powerful selective breeding can be. The axolotl's reproduction cycle is pretty straightforward in captivity but fascinating in its details. Axolotls reach sexual maturity around 12 to 18 months old. When they're ready to reproduce, the male axolotl puts on an elaborate courtship dance, moving his tail in a wavy motion while swimming around the female. Then the male deposits a spermatophore, basically a package containing his genetic material. The female picks up this spermatophore with her cloaca, which is her reproductive opening. After fertilization, the female lays hundreds of tiny eggs that she carefully sticks to aquatic plants or whatever substrate is available in the water. Axolotl eggs develop in the water without needing any complicated external heat sources. At water temperatures around 19 to 23 degrees Celsius, the eggs typically hatch in about 14 to 19 days. The larvae that emerge are tiny, just a few millimeters long, and are completely aquatic from birth. These larvae start off feeding on their yolk sacs before they start hunting for food on their own. Under optimal conditions, axolotl babies grow pretty fast, reaching adult size of about 25 centimeters in roughly a year. The conservation story of the axolotl is complicated. It's both a success and a failure at the same time. In its natural habitat in Mexico, the axolotl has become basically extinct. This happened because of multiple factors. Mexico City's urban expansion caused the lakes where axolotls lived to be drained and messed with. Lake Xochimilco, which was once the main home of the axolotl, got partially drained and polluted with urban sewage. When invasive predatory fish like trout and carp were introduced, they absolutely decimated the native axolotl populations. On top of that, water pollution from pesticides and other chemicals seriously degraded the habitat quality. But here's the wild part. While the axolotl disappeared from its natural habitat, it absolutely thrived in captivity worldwide. The lab colonies that were set up in the 19th century kept multiplying, and the axolotl became one of the most important research organisms in modern biology. Thousands of universities and research centers maintain axolotl colonies to study regeneration, development, neurology, and genetics. Plus, the axolotl has become mega popular as a pet in home aquariums. Millions of people around the world keep axolotls, which means there are probably way more axolotls in captivity than ever existed in the wild. Scientists are now looking at reintroduction programs to try and bring axolotl populations back to their natural Mexican habitat. But these programs face serious challenges. The habitat's been so messed with that just dumping axolotls back in the lakes won't cut it. You need comprehensive environmental restoration that cuts down pollution, controls invasive predator species, and recreates the optimal conditions for temperature, food availability, and water quality that axolotls need to survive. Some projects have had limited success, but completely restoring axolotls to the wild is still a long-term goal. The axolotl has played a huge role in modern scientific research. Because of its regeneration abilities, scientists have studied it intensively to figure out how they might one day apply this knowledge to human medicine. If researchers can fully understand how the axolotl regenerates complex organs, it might one day be possible to help humans who've suffered serious injuries or degenerative diseases. Someone who lost a limb could potentially regrow it, or a person with heart disease could have their heart regenerated. While these applications are still pretty far in the future, studying the axolotl gives us hope and fundamental knowledge toward reaching these goals. The axolotl's genome was completely sequenced by international researchers in the early 21st century. The axolotl genome is extraordinarily huge, roughly 10 times bigger than the human genome in terms of base pairs. Despite this massive genome size, the axolotl doesn't have an unusually large number of genes. Instead, it has a ton of non-coding DNA. This non-coding DNA, which used to be wrongly called junk DNA, actually contains important regulatory information that controls how genes get expressed. Analysis of the axolotl genome has revealed unique genes that seem to be connected to its regeneration abilities and its lack of visible aging. In modern pop culture, the axolotl has experienced a huge surge in popularity. On the internet, axolotls have been the subject of thousands of memes, viral videos, and fan art. The axolotl's adorable eyes and permanent smile make it absolutely irresistible to people. The axolotl has even shown up in popular video games like Minecraft, where players can find and tame virtual axolotls. On social media, axolotl-related hashtags generate millions of posts. This pop culture popularity has translated into greater awareness about axolotls and their extraordinary traits, introducing new generations to this fascinating amphibian. People who keep axolotls as pets quickly discover they're pretty chill, low-maintenance animals. They don't need fancy daily feeding. They're typically fed every 2 to 3 days with small food pellets or live food like tiny worms or brine shrimp. The tank just needs regular cleaning to keep the water quality good. The axolotl is pretty laid back and can be watched for hours as it slowly moves around the tank. A lot of owners report that their axolotls seem to have distinct personalities, with some being more active and exploratory, while others prefer just chilling on the tank bottom. How axolotls interact with other species is pretty limited in their natural habitat, but in captivity, researchers have observed some interesting behaviors. Axolotls can be cannibalistic, especially if there's a big size difference between individuals. In community tanks, it's better to keep axolotls of similar size together. Axolotls can also get eaten by larger fish, so they shouldn't be housed with fish big enough to be a threat. However, axolotls can peacefully coexist with very small fish or other axolotls of similar size. Water temperature is absolutely critical for axolotl health. These animals prefer cold water between 10 and 24 degrees Celsius, with an optimal range around 16 to 19 degrees Celsius. Higher temperatures seriously stress out the axolotl and can cause it to lose its external gills. If the water gets above 25 degrees Celsius for an extended period, the axolotl will start to involuntarily undergo metamorphosis, losing its distinctive neotenic traits. This temperature sensitivity matters for pet owners living in hot climates where they might need to invest in cooling systems to keep the water in the right temperature range. In nature, axolotls eat small, aquatic organisms, but in captivity, there are tons of feeding options. Commercial axolotl pellets are formulated to provide balanced nutrition. Live foods like freeze-dried bloodworms, tubifex worms, and brine shrimp are popular and provide dietary variety. Some owners even occasionally feed their axolotls small fish to stimulate natural predatory behaviors, but it's important not to overfeed them. Axolotls have pretty slow metabolisms and can get overweight if you go overboard with feeding. The most common disease affecting captive axolotls is rhinovirus, a virus that causes eye swelling, bleeding, and general health decline. There's no cure for rhinovirus, so prevention is key. The best way to prevent it is to maintain super high hygiene standards in the tank and never introduce new axolotls without proper quarantine. Bacterial infections can also hit axolotls, causing gill rot or skin infections. These bacterial infections can often be treated with antibiotics if caught and treated early. Poor water quality is the root cause of most health problems in axolotls, so keeping excellent water quality is absolutely essential. The future of the axolotl is kind of mixed. It's promising in some ways, but also precarious in others. On one hand, the axolotl has basically secured its survival in captivity as long as there are humans interested in keeping them, studying them, or just digging them. On the other hand, the axolotl remains critically endangered in its natural habitat and could stay functionally extinct in the wild for the foreseeable future. Conservation efforts will continue, but they need long-term commitment to environmental restoration that's expensive and hard to maintain. What's for sure is that the axolotl will keep fascinating humanity, keep being studied by scientists trying to unlock the mysteries of regeneration and longevity, and keep being loved by millions of people worldwide who just can't resist that adorable smile of this extraordinary amphibian.